Tappin' Birdie, joined by DG Betting, also known as Adam Kirk. Pleasure to have you on. I know we did the Hero World Challenge, not the biggest event on tour, but I thought this would be a good spot to have you on. So how are you tonight?
Doing good. I remember you texted me a few weeks ago. You said all you said was Mexico Open, and part of me thought you were planning a trip down to Mexico, and I was like, oh, that sounds pretty nice, but this is not too bad either.
Yeah, I tend to send texts that make sense in my head, and I expect everyone to know exactly what I'm talking about, but that's usually not the case. So I apologize for that, but I'm glad I had you on for this event. And I would try to have, a good guest for a good event and try and parse it out in the right way. And I just felt like I'm very impressed by your work, and I know that you have the ability to digest a course that no one's seen before. So I knew it was a new course, and I know you'd be into it, and I know you'd give a nice write up and everything. So I just thought it would be a good event, and I thought the field would be a little bit better. It has turned out to not be a very good field.
Yeah, no, it like you were saying, I do a lot of DP World Tour, European Tour handicapping, and I swear every tournament this year has been in a course that they've never played before. So kind of overlaps nicely with what we'll have to do this week. And yeah, not the strongest field. I was just looking. I think it's one of the weakest regular events since the John Deere last year when Lucas Glover won. But there's going to be a winner this week. Those tickets are going to cash all the same. And so it's golf is golf, and we're gonna see what we can do this week.
Yeah, and you wrote about it in your article that I suggest everyone to check out, that it's kind of like practice a little bit, because next week, it's not a course we've never seen before, but it hasn't been played since 2018. And then we're going to two majors that we really haven't seen in a while, with Southern Hills and the U.S. Open. Just preview, I'm having a guest on for TIB early in the week. That week, he's a member at the course. His parents are a member. He was playing it last week, and I asked him about it, and he gave a really good detailed response, and he knows what he's talking about. So I'm going to have him on for a little bit of a preview. And then, this stretch of golf is a little tough right now, but I was looking, and Wells Fargo next week looks to be a pretty strong field. It's not a super elite field. It's not a Genesis field, but there's some top names that are going to be there. So that next week, and then I think people are going to play Byron Nelson, because people need a little tune-up before the PGA. So I think this will probably be the worst of the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I would agree. Like you said, players are going to want to play at least one time between the Masters and the PGA Championship. And I think there's some guys like Lowry said that he was just going to play last week in the team event, and then he's going to show back up at the PGA. But yeah, I would imagine some of the guys playing this week, the Finaus, the Woodlands, the Roms, I don't know if they're going to play the next couple of events, but I'm sure down there in Wells Fargo. And then the following week, you'll see those guys who usually play the week before a major. I know Brooks usually does, and Hideki and things like that for sure.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to the golf coming up. So before we, get started and talk about some more things, got to talk about our sponsor, BetSperts. Very happy to have them as a presenting sponsor. They've been really good to me, and they've been putting out some really great content. I was just using their DFS optimizer, and I've been saying this for weeks. If you subscribe to their newsletter, you will automatically be entered into a contest to win a golf trip with Paige Sporadic, my girl. She came on my podcast. It's okay. I gave them, the A-OK on that. So go sign up for the newsletter. Go sign up for the site. It's $99 for the whole year. DFS Optimizer, Tournament Simulator, Ownership Projections, a lot of great stuff. So go check them out. And, whenever I talk about the sponsors, got to thank about the loyal listeners, because you guys make this possible. And this is what we're going to do, okay? I never really do this, but I've came across some money recently, and, you guys deserve it. So if you guys give a 5-star review, and if you give a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and send me a screenshot of it, you will be entered into a raffle, and I'm going to pick one guy, and I'll give you $250. So I don't think a million people are going to do it, but anyone who does, it will help out the pod, and you have a chance to win $250. So why wouldn't you do it? I'm going to quote it. Just send it to me through DM. Do whatever you need to do. But I'm going to do that because I want to give back to the loyal listeners of TIB. So We got to talk about your recent run of top 3 finishes in some recent events. How are you dealing with that? Are you trending towards a winner? How have you been able to deal with the close finishes recently?
Yeah, well, I guess the positive and the negative, or I guess the bittersweet side, is this has happened many times in my stretch of golf betting. I feel like in the fall swing, it was the exact same thing. And so you kind of get used to it. But yeah, the Masters had Sungjae, Im there, and Lowry and Im obviously had the first round lead, and Im and Lowry were. The thing about that was obviously they weren't really in contention the whole time. It was pretty clear Scotty was going to win. So that one was kind of like, you were hopeful, but didn't really care that much. The Lowry Straka, I had Lowry and Straka at Heritage, and like you go through it enough times that you don't really get your hopes up because you know how these things go. But then when the guys got a couple shot lead with only a few holes to go, no matter how hard you try, you start to think like, okay, this is going to be one that's going to work out. And then Lowry chips it into the water. And then at the exact same time he chips in the water, Straka makes like a crazy birdie putt on 17. So then I'm like, okay, the alternative route is opening up. He bogeys 18 to miss out on the playoff. And then I would say, in the team event last week, it was pretty clear again, Cantlay and Schauffele hold on to that one. Burns and Horschel snuck back into it, but never really felt like they were going to win. But the European Tour, I don't know how many people watch the European Tour or follow along, but that one was brutal. I had guys in first and second for like the entire final round, well clear of the field. And this guy shoots a final round 62 to come up and snatched it at the last second. So that one hurt probably the most of any of them that have been happening. So I'm hoping it's like a darkest before the dawn situation. We'll be in good shape this week, but it's just as likely that nobody finishes in like the top 30 this week. And I guess that would be okay too, to have a nice reprieve from some painful losses, but we'll see what happens.
It's really tough. And my thing about it is like, if you bet every single week, like you're just going to have runner-ups. Like it's going to happen. And it's really a sign that you're seeing, the board well. And at the end of the day, you're just trying to predict golfers to play well. And it doesn't always turn out, in your favor, but at least, they're playing well and they're showing signs. And Lowry hurt. I really wanted Lowry to win. That would have been my best win ever. But, it just wasn't really meant to be. And I legitimately bet every single outright this week with an each way because I cashed the Will Zalatoris each way at the Masters, which again, he was never in contention, but again, get a nice little paycheck from that. And then Zalatoris and Riley finished top 4 at the team event. I had an each way on that. So I had the money in Bet Rivers. So I was like, I'm just going to bet them all with an each way this week because I just think I know you really only bet outrights, but I just think like in general, just it's nice to have a top 20 and a top 10 on the guys you really like because more likely than not, they're going to finish in the top 20. That covers your outright and more. So that's just something I always like to do. And, that's kind of, if I'm not going to hit an outright, which I'm most likely not going to because it's extremely difficult to do, it's nice to have a little bit of exposure on a max play whale bomb, as you said.
And I think the thing too that actually becomes like the hardest part is when you have a guy like Lowry, for example, who I think I bet him 3 or 4 weeks in a row through the Players Championship and Honda and things like that. When he was playing really well, is when a guy finishes second in a terribly sad way, the way that Lowry did, you want to kind of jump off the train because you're like, oh, this guy can't win. I don't want to go through that again. But at the same time, the guy's playing well. Do you stick with him because he just finished second? If you didn't have a bet on him, you'd think, oh, that was a great finish. Maybe I'll bet him next week. And so I think that's really the part that I like on a week-to-week basis. Doing this consistently becomes the hard part of not letting previous results, bias what you're going to do the following week. So I think, like you're saying, having a top 10 or a top 20 or in each way, whatever it may be, kind of cushions that blow and makes it easier not to bias your decision going into the following event.
Yeah, and something, we just always like to talk about strategy and how to be better. And something I've realized in the past 2 weeks is that I think sometimes I overvalue a miscut from a golfer. Like Spieth at the Masters, misses the cut want absolutely nothing to do with him last week. You know, Spieth is obviously the king of Augusta. That's a place he should always play well. And it wasn't even the fact that I bet him outright. It wasn't like, oh my God, he crushed. Like, it didn't matter. Like, he was never winning. He misses the cut or whatever. And then he goes on and wins the next week. And then last week, you know, I was never betting Xander and Cantley at 8-1. I was just never going to do that. But I just thought Xander, with the form he was in, it just wasn't something I was super confident in a team event. So I think something that I want to work on and be a little bit better at is just dismissing a miscut, because at the end of the day, these guys are top 15 golfers in the world and they can turn it around, you know, on a dime. They're not going to miss every single cut. So that's something I'm just kind of working on right now, and just something I want to be more aware of, because, you know, not that I would have bet the guys, but it just because someone misses a cut and they're a good player, it's not going to last forever. And these guys are so good that they could basically turn it around at any time.
And the other side of that too is when a guy misses the cut, like Spieth did at the Masters, his price rises to 40 to 1 or whatever it was at RBC. So by, you know, not holding that against them, it also opens the door to those better prices that'll probably pop up. I'm playing a guy on the European Tour this week. Same idea. He missed the cut by 1 in the previous event. He matches the course. And so, yeah, you don't want to hold that against players too long, because like you said, they can bounce back at a moment's notice.
Yeah. So let's get into the Mexico Open. Obviously, this is a course we've never seen before. Obviously, this field isn't that great, but I think the good thing about it from our perspective is that we handicap and bet the PGA Tour every week. So a lot of these guys we're more familiar with than maybe, you know, an average player or an average fan of the PGA Tour. So I know you did a great write-up. In your kind of research, what were some of the things that you think can be, you know, valuable to know this week? What are some of the stats you're looking at? And what do you think some of the keys to success might be for some golfers this week to play well and succeed?
Yeah, good question. And I think broadly speaking, I've read some of the other content this week, and I'm pretty sure everybody has kind of settled on the fact that this is a longer course. Past Palom, tee to green surfaces, and Past Palom's one of those grasses. It's a sticky grass, so the ball's not going to roll out as much on tee shots. It's not going to roll out as much on chips and things around the green. The ball's kind of just going to land where it lands. It's going to be very point A to point B style of play. So I don't think, you know, it's rocket science to say that this course is going to be long, play a little bit longer. I think most people are looking at the course are seeing that. But I will say that, you know, there's courses throughout the year that are long courses that don't necessarily play perfectly into the hands of long hitters. And there's courses that are short courses that don't necessarily play into the hands of short hitters. Like, you really have to look at each course and try to see, you know, historically what's happened. We don't have the ability to look historically at the venue this week, but when you look for courses that are longer, really wide fairways, like you look at some of the visuals of this course on Google Maps, and I mean, there's holes where there's 3 fairways. They're all, you know, I don't know how many yards wide, but look extremely wide. There's no trees. So guys are going to be bombing the ball off the tee. They can miss a fairway, fully a fairway over, and it's not going to have no impact on their shot into the green. And so when you look at other courses that pop up on tour that look like that, I'm looking at Trinity Forest, Congaree, Kapalua, TPC Craig Ranch, where the Byron Nelson's going to be coming up in a few weeks, Summit Club, TPC Twin Cities. And when you look at the history of the players that have had success at those venues, they are the longer hitters. They are the players who have good long iron play. So I'm going to be looking for long hitters at this long course. But like I'm saying, that's not necessarily true across the board. I just truly believe this is a long course that fits into the style of play for long hitters, when there will be weeks coming up into the future where you shouldn't just assume long course, long hitters. You really just have to look at it. And so that's the hill I'm going to die on this week. And it could easily be wrong. Maybe some short hitters are going to perform well, but you kind of got to take a stance and see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting to note, because I think a recent example of that would be 2 weeks ago at RBC with Cam Young, you know, at RBC Heritage, which is absolutely opposite of this, which is a very much a club down plotter's course. And he's known for being extremely long off the tee and being a bomber. He was first round leader, obviously had a great showing there. So I don't think those things are always, you know, one and the same. But when I was kind of listening to people talk about it and thinking about this course and certain characteristics, I kind of thought about Kapalua, like you said. Massive fairways, a long course on the scorecard, massive greens. I know it's not Paspalum, but they are slow greens. They are slow Bermuda greens at Kapalua. Do not have a lot of undulation. Again, it's a resort course. They're not going to be crazy. So and then when you look at Kapalua and, the winner there, and it was Cam Smith, who his biggest weakness is accuracy off the tee. So I think this week you don't have to be the most accurate player in the world off the tee. And if you're a little wonky, that can kind of help you out, and you can still get by just hitting driver a lot. So I think that's something to look at.
Just the one other piece that I think plays into the distance angle this week is also the par threes all seem to be relatively long. They're all pushing around 200 yards. And so players who are longer hitters tend to be better proximity around, 175 to 200 and 200 plus, which I'll be looking at this week. So you got to look at the par three sometimes as well on courses and see how those are playing, because again, longer hitters are going to hit shorter irons into the long par threes. And that'll, I think, be a key this week, because there's 5 par threes, I'm pretty sure, at this course.
Yeah. So let's get into the board. Jon Rahm is plus 350. I've literally been on this podcast for a while, and I've never touted or said to bet Jon Rahm or ever bet him or bet any money on him. I'm not going to do it this week. I'm not going to play him in DraftKings. I think that it's like, I'm not even going to go into this whole thing about why plus 350 isn't a good bet, because no one is betting that. It's just not a thing. I don't need to dissuade anybody from doing that, because literally no one would do it. And it's at golf betting. There are literally a multitude of top 20, top 40 plays at plus 300 that you can bet that are way more likely to hit. In terms of DraftKings, I think he's going to be extremely highly owned. I'm not playing him in DraftKings at all. I don't even think he's going to – I'm not even going to be like, oh, well, he can obviously win. I do not think he will win. I don't think this is the perfect course for him. So we'll see. But I obviously want no part of Jon Rahm this week. I don't think it's something that I need to do much convincing on.
Yeah, no, I don't have much to add to that. I feel the same way. And the only thing I would add is, if you look at some of his tournaments that he's played against weak fields, he went over to Europe towards the end of last year and played a couple tournaments in Spain and was really not close to winning those. And those fields were weaker than this one. So it's not like he just shows up against weak fields and wins every time. I don't think he's won much of those types of fields recently. So totally hear you on that. And I think our time is best spent looking elsewhere on the board.
So the first person on your betting card, the first person you are placing an outright on, is Big Tony Finau, winner of the 2017 Puerto Rico Open. Why do you think Tony Finau can win this week? I know he's been in a little bit of a slump after his win at Northern Trust, but he's been showing some life recently. So what did you see out of Big Tony this week?
Yeah, I think when you look from a ball striking perspective, since the win at Liberty National, he's been hitting it just as well. He's hitting the ball fine on approach. He's probably actually hitting the ball better on approach than he was leading into that win at Liberty National. And off the tee, we know that Tony's one of the longer hitters on tour. He's 12th in this field in carry distance, and I'm looking at carry distance this week instead of driving distance. It's going to give you roughly the same people, but with the ball not rolling out as far, you kind of want guys who hit it a little farther through the air. He's a great long iron player. He's 7th in the field, proximity 200 plus. And then, like I said, looking at ball striking, he's 2nd over the last 50 rounds. And I think he's 6th over the last 20 rounds. And it's always nice to see somebody who over multiple time periods has been good ball striking, because it just means most weeks he's going to show up and he's going to be better than this field with his irons and off the tee. He's really been struggling on the greens. That's what's been holding him back from having contending performances. He's looked a little bit better over the last couple tournaments. He gained strokes on the greens at Valero. He gained strokes on the greens at the Masters. And then he moves on to Paspalum, which is a surface that he's, we don't have the putting stats for a lot of these Paspalum tournaments like Mayakoba. There's no strokes gained. So you kind of just have to say, did he play well there? And then you kind of assume he must have putted okay. But if he won in Puerto Rico on Paspalum, 7th at Mayakoba in 2015, 8th in 2021. He was 8th at the PGA Championship at Kiowa, which was on Paspalum. He was 9th over in Kuala Lumpur in 2016, which was on Paspalum. So he's had success on the surface. And he's also been struggling around the greens. And I think, again, Paspalum is a surface that, like I wrote about in my article, Victor Hovland's been very successful on Paspalum. His biggest issue is around the greens, because when it's slopey and quick, that's going to be tough when you're chipping. That's not really going to be the case this week as far as we know. So just playing into the ball striking angle, I think I got him at 25-1, which feels like a fair price. I think if Rahm's not in this field, he's probably 14-1 or something like that. So if you're willing to strike out Rahm, which I think most people are, I think 25-1 is a fair price, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think it's a really good case, and I think the 25-1 is a fair number. I think it's a very bettable number, and I think Tony Finau is way too talented to just kind of be in, not great form for that long. I just think that he is just way too good of a golfer, and although he doesn't have the wins to necessarily back that up, he's obviously been great in major championships. I like that he made the cut at the Masters, and I think that, again, he needs to gear up for this major season because he's been excellent in PGA Championship. He's been excellent in U.S. Open. He's been great at Opens. I think he has a great chance at the Open Championship this year. So I think at 25-1, I think it's very bettable. And I think at 10-4 on DraftKings, I definitely want to start a lot of lineups with Gary Woodland, but I wrote him up as my favorite 10K play, and I think I could fit them both in. So honestly, I really don't want to spend too much time on Answer Nah and Reed. Out of all those three, I think Reed is the most viable option. I don't really buy the fact that it's too long for him. This guy's won at Torrey Pines. Like, I don't think that's really a narrative that can really go out. I don't think he'll necessarily win, but I don't think it's a bad DraftKings play at sub 5% ownership. And, he's played well in some decent comp courses. So out of those three, I really like Reed. So my first bet this week, and someone I got a 28-1 early in the week. I bet that with the each way. My mortgage play this week is him top 20, is going to be Gary Woodland. I know he's very popular this week, and that really doesn't discourage me at all. He's just had a really great season, and he's been playing really well with a couple missed cuts, but every single time he's made the cut, he's played well and contended. 5th at Honda, 5th at API, which he was very much in a position to win that golf tournament, 21st at the Valspar, and then 8th at Valero. And I just think it's a situation where he's kind of trending towards a win. He has a bunch of great finishes, and he's going to break through eventually. And obviously, Gary Woodland is very much long off the tee. He's obviously great with his long irons. That is not going to be a problem this week. And I just think it kind of fits the narrative, like you talked about with Tony a little bit, in that he's such a talented ball striker. He's talked about in the past. I love watching the U.S. Open documentary on his win. He's talked about how it's never been the ball striking. It's never been the driving and the irons. It's always been the putting that has held him back. So again, I think that these slower greens and these greens that are easier to chip and putt on can help him out. 28-1, I think, is a really fair number. I know it's down a little bit, but I just think that it's a great bet this week, and I know you're on him too.
Yeah, I ended up getting him at 25. I just waited a little bit too long, but I'm going to be on him as well for all those reasons you mentioned. And I tweeted out that of the top 27 ball strikers in this tournament over the last 30 rounds, only 4 of them are gaining strokes putting, and Gary's actually one of them. So like sometimes when you think about tournaments, it's like, what's the barrier of entry to get into the putting contest? Because all tournaments become a putting contest at some point. And like, there's weeks where the approach play is super easy. So everybody's in the putting contest, and those are hard. And this week it seems like off the tee play and ball striking is going to be at some level required. And so he clearly clears that hurdle. And then the players that also clear that hurdle have not been putting very well. So like, he's near the top of the list of those people that have been at that level. And I think it's smart to have that each way in the top 10 or top 20 that you're going to be having on him. And I should probably add that too. And the only reason I say that is because since starting the 2020 season, he's been between 4th and 10th 11 times in 53 starts, but he's never been better than that. He doesn't have a single top 3 over the last 3 seasons. So he plays well consistently. That's like a 20% top 10 rate. But for whatever reason, who knows what it is, he hasn't been able to close the door. We know he had some trouble in the bunker at Arnold Palmer, which cost him there. So will be good to have a little bit of insurance. And I would definitely advise people follow you on that strategy.
Yeah, that's my mortgage play this week. I got $300 on it. Like I'm betting Gary Woodland top 20. You could get it like plus 110. I really like that play. So I'll be all over there. Munoz, I'm not betting him. I have no exposure to him, but people are saying he withdrew his last start. He also withdrew at the Valspar. I just haven't really heard that. He has 2 withdrawals in his last time he was entered into a tournament. So I don't see it as a reason to bet him. Cam Drangali, I know a lot of people are laughing at his odds and everything. And, that's, well within reason, but he makes a lot of cuts. I think it's a fine DraftKings play. I don't think people are going to be used to paying 9.7 for him, but I think Cam, and he just finished top 10 last week at the Zurich with Windham Clark, who I also like this week. So I think he's a fine play. Someone I know neither of us are betting, but I just kind of want to have a conversation. I know he's popular. What are your overall thoughts about Aaron Wise? I've always thought he was a very talented player. He had a really good swing season. He's played well at Mayakoba twice. And although he had a kind of a rough start to this season, he's been playing halfway decent. Do you think this is a course he can succeed on?
Yeah, I think that I'm probably biased because I did play him early in the year and he was terrible in a couple tournaments. I think like Torrey Pines or something, he was absolutely awful. But on paper, like from a ball striking perspective, he's hitting the ball great off the tee. He's gained strokes in like 6 or 7 straight tournaments. His approach play is good. I really think the Trinity Forest course comp is a strong one here, and he won there. But at the same time, like he has been playing well, but his finishes haven't been.
Yeah.
He was T21 at Heritage, T17 at Arnold Palmer. He was T5 at the CJ Cup, and honestly, the CJ Cup probably is a reasonable comp this week as well. That Summit Club was wide open. But it's not for me just because I swear every time I've been on him, he whether it's the 3rd or 4th round, he doesn't seem to play well. And when he did win, which was, I think, 2018, that was off of a T2 the week before. So he kind of parlayed a hot streak into a win. There's no track record to go to that points to him going from some middling finishes into a win. Now that can obviously happen at any given time. It's just, he was probably, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, he was over 100 to 1 in a couple events, and now he is 35, 40 to 1. I can't get there on that, but like I said, solely off the Trinity comp, this should be a course that he plays well at. Definitely. He hits it long, and at times he's crazily inaccurate off the tee, and that's not going to hurt him here. So he should be able to play to his strengths. And if his putter heats up, sure.
Yeah, I think it's really just it would be a massive ask. I know he doesn't know his odds, but for him to win at 40 to 1 would just be a really big ask for someone that's only won on tour once and, isn't someone that is constantly in contention this week. So, and you can't even get that 40 to 1. I know he started with that this week. So someone that I bet, you bet, I got a really great number on him. I hope you did early in the week. And I want to shout out Andy. I want to shout out you because when the field was posted, you literally said
that as popular as it was.
Like you legit, like before anything, you were just like Camp Champ season. Andy laid out a great case for him in the fact that, I was writing him up before, and I literally said, this guy has 3 wins on the PGA Tour since 2018. That's more than Jordan Spieth. That's more than Tony Finau. That's more than Joaquin Niemann. That's more than Louis Oosthuizen. That doesn't really count. But, he is, we talk about how hard it is to win on tour. He actually wins on tour, and he has about 1 win a season for the last 3 years. And, again, this was all laid out. I'm sure everyone, heard it. But he has a track record of playing really poor, having one great start where he has great ball striking numbers, and then he goes out and wins the next week as a long shot. He's done that 3 separate times in his career. So I knew I was betting him and again, I was not like, if he's 40 to 1, I'm not going to bet him, but he opened, I got him 70 to 1 with an each way.
I got him 70 as well.
Justin in the chat asked where I bet each ways. I bet it on Bet Rivers.
Yeah.
You're in Illinois, it should be there. I suggest betting it. But yeah, I just at 70 to 1, that is just there's just too much there to not bet something at 70 to 1 in this field. If this was a much better field, I think that's a different question and it's a different ask. But you give him a pretty shitty field. On a course that obviously distance is going to matter on. You're going to have a long iron in. He's excellent with his long irons because he just hits it way further and his 7 iron goes 200 yards or whatnot. And I think 3M's actually a decent comp. I think that it has these wide open fairways. It is a pretty easy event. So at 70 to 1, I'm willing to take a chance on Cam Champ.
Yeah, and I think like going back to we were just talking about Wise, and that champ number I'm sure has gone down now. Like I got him at 70 as well. I can't say for certain where my like cutoff would have been on him. It was 70 when I got him, but you look at Aaron Wise and Sebastian Munoz, who are around 35, 40 to 1 or whatever they may be. Like, I don't know how you could bet them at that number when they both have a single win on tour. When you've got Cam Champ, who is proven to be an elite talent when he's on, who just finished 10th at the Masters. Yeah. And I think like the case isn't rocket science. He hits the ball far. This is a long course. Like that's not outside the box thinking. I think it's pretty straightforward. And then you add in the 3 wins and the price 70 to 1 compared to some of those guys below him on the odds board. And if he finishes last place, I will feel no regret whatsoever about playing him this week.
Yeah, and I don't even think he will. Like, I don't even think it's a situation where I'm like, I wouldn't bet him top 20 or play him in DFS. Like, I think he could play well. And Caesars, I was just writing it up. Caesars has plus 550 on a top 20. No. It's plus 500 for a top 10. I think that's good value. I think that's a good bet. I think, again, it would be a big ask and very obvious for him to win. But I don't even think it's a situation where it's just complete boom or bust. I mean, like you said, he finished 10th at the Masters, which, again, a lot of guys can't say they even were close to doing that. I just think it's really a no-brainer. And if you don't want to bet him because everyone's betting it and it's too obvious, then I just don't think that's enough of a reason to not play someone.
And I think, too, like you're saying with the 10th place finish at the Masters and the 3 wins, it just points to something we can't quantify. But there's some mentality that he has that when the pressure's on the line, he's been able to step up and perform. And that 10th in the Masters carries even more weight when you factor that getting in the top 12 got him into the following Masters, which I'm sure he wouldn't have been qualified for without that. So he stood up there on the final day of the Masters and performed well under pressure again. And he's got a track record of doing that other guys in the field don't. And when you see that, you got to roll with it. And then he is also in 2019 was 10th at Mayakoba, which isn't a course that should necessarily fit him super well. It's more of a less than driver off the tee type of course, which likely points to at least some affinity for Paspalum, which he'll see this week.
And really every single person we've talked about so far that we're betting is a great ball striker that struggles with the flat stay. So I just think that is a route I'm willing to go on this week. So the next guy, 2020 Honda champion winner, top 5 finish at Tournament of Champions, which I think is a decent comp. And I think that thing that's tough about it is that most people in this field did not play in that event. So I think it's a little bit tough. Also, Gary has a top 5 finish there, just popped into my head. So that's another reason why he's going to win this week. What struck you about Matt Jones for an outright, and why do you think he can succeed this week?
Yeah, he's one that like my model had him up pretty high, and the model that I make has been performing very well this year. And so sometimes there's guys where I just have to like trust the model more than my gut because that's seemingly been more correct this year. So he was high up in the model, which instantly makes me want to dig a little bit deeper. And then I think, like you said, he is the type of player, he's relatively long off the tee and at venues where he can be wild because he is wildly inaccurate at times off the tee, similar to an Aaron Wise type of player. When he can play from the fairway, he can get white hot with his irons and with his scoring. That 3rd place finish at Century is impressive when you consider how low he had to go to be there. And then I also like that when you look at that Trinity Forest comp that I was talking about with Aaron Wise, where we like him a little bit because he won there. You look at Jones at Trinity Forest, and he was T5 and T13 in the 2 events that they had there, which was another course where you can hit it wherever you want off the tee and then take aim at the greens and try to get hot with the putter. He was struggling after the Century with the flat stick. If you remember at Arnold Palmer, he slung his putter into the water, which probably pointed to some struggles he was having there, and the statistics back it up. But just last time out at Valero, which is another Norman course, it's not a place that I listed as something that I'll be like using as a huge comp this week, but same designer. It's another course where you can kind of hit it wherever you want off the tee. It was obviously much firmer than it's going to be this week, but he was T2 last time out, found some luck with the putter. He's unbelievable around the greens. He gains like half a stroke every single tournament, which is just a nice little buffer to have any time. And so got him at, what did I get him at? 65 to 1. And I compared that to guys around him in his range. And I mean, he's won before. So I'll happily go there and hope that he has one of those weeks where he just gets ridiculously hot, which he's proven to be capable of.
Yeah, I'm officially tailing you on this pick. I'm tailing you on Matt Jones. I know when you sent him to me before, I was like, and I kind of looked into it. I knew he was getting some buzz, and I just think I really kind of like TOC a little bit. And again, we're talking about guys that have proven, that they can win. And I don't even think it's a situation where you can be like, oh, well, is he really going to win? I don't think Matt Jones is a guy that's going to win multiple times a year, but he won well over a year ago. I think he's talented enough to do it again this week. So I got the 50-1 again. I bet it with an each way. So I think that's good play. I'll be playing him in DraftKings. Absolutely 100%. I think I'll be starting a lot of lineups. Gary, Jones, and then kind of go into more guys later on that I'm willing to bet. So a guy playing DraftKings that I think is a good bet, and I think that you can make a case for, is Chad Raymie. He just won the Punta Cana Corrales, and again, that's a fairly decent comp course, and he's just been playing well, and he's 80-1. Like, I just think that's a solid play. I like him top 20. I'm not betting him outright, but I'll be there in DraftKings, and I think he's someone that, I just think you just go with the fact that he's played well on these resort, coastal, paspalum courses before.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Obviously, he won at Corrales, which I think is a good comp this week. Like you said, 2 weeks before that, he was T5 at Puerto Rico, which is going to be relatively similar. He's a guy who can get hot with the putter, and when you're looking for guys a little bit further down the board to take a chance on, a guy who can get hot on the surface that you're on for the week is definitely an angle. And he's up near I don't know exactly what his number was, but he's up in the field in birdie average. So he's a guy who can just make a lot of birdies. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a week where that's going to be important. And so, yeah, he's a guy who could catch fire. And he's had not just that win in the T5 at Puerto Rico, he was competitive at Shriners with a T14. So even in a little bit bigger events, because this is going to be, a little bit stronger field than Corrales, he's been competitive, and a top 20, top 30 finish definitely seems feasible for him.
So the next guy on your card that I want to ask you about, I first want to ask you, what number did you get Ortiz at?
I got him at 100, and
okay.
I don't think I would have taken him below, 70 or 80. But the 100 to me on Ortiz just made no sense for a couple of reasons. The first one was before I knew what his history was playing in Mexico, just like offhand. I knew he had played well before, but he ranked out very well in my model. He was up near the top of the model anyway. So, like, if they were playing in Iceland, I still would have been considering him just solely on the fact that, like, he matches out with some of the skill sets you need this week. He's a long hitter off the tee. He's actually relatively accurate for how long he is. And he's a fine approach player. When you look at his form recently, obviously he's missed 4 straight cuts. But when you look at the stats, like, it's not like he's been terrible across the board. It's actually, I haven't looked into specifically what he shot in those tournaments where he missed the cut, but you just look at his stats and you would think, like, okay, that looks like a, T40 level stat line. It doesn't look like he played terribly. So that's reassuring. And then his track record in Mexico is unbelievable. I mean, he has 2 seconds at Mayakoba. He has an 8th at Mayakoba and a 9th at Mayakoba. Like, he has 4 top 10s when he gets down into Mexico. And I'm not going to try to come up with all of the reasons why that exists. I'm just going to trust that there's some affinity for heading back home and playing on these paspalum surfaces. And you give him to me at 100-1 against this field. And it was honestly one of the easiest bets that I placed of the week.
Yeah, and that's what, that's kind of what happens in this week. I always talk about it on the pod. Like, betting someone 100-1 is such a small investment as to what you can get from it, and you're not axing, a lot. And people hit at 100-1 and plus all the time. So, again, I just think if there's a few reasons to bet someone and they have a number at 100-1, and you can, not risk that much to win, what you normally like to, I just think it's a good bet. And, again, the recent form and the missed cuts, I'm kind of talking about how you got to overlook it sometimes, and it's kind of baked into their price, and you're getting a good number on them, and you could still get a 70-1 on DraftKings. So I have no problem with that at all. The next guy I bet I know he's decently popular. Again, I bet him with the each way. I got a 90-1 on him, but you can still get him at 100-1. So again, we're talking about, small investment for a nice return. Is Windham Clark. I bet him and Drangali top 20 last week, and I really bet them because I kind of looked at Clark and what he's been doing, and then I looked at Drangali and I thought, okay, he's playing well enough for me. So Windham Clark, obviously he's known as an extremely long hitter, and that's going to be important this week. And he has top tens at a lot of these comp courses that we're talking about. He has top tens at the 3M, the Bermuda, and the Puerto Rico Open. So I think that's really great. And again, Corrales, didn't have an unbelievable performance, but he finished 22nd there. 5th in driving distance, 15th in putting over the past 50 rounds. He was just 10th place last week with Drangali. He was obviously the lesser player on that team. So I think it's a good bet. I think he's playing well, and then he's off 4 straight made cuts. So at 100-1, give me a guy with good driving distance that has some success on these courses. And I think it's a great week for a guy to get his first PGA Tour win. Again, I bet it with the each way. Caesars, this is what I was talking about. Caesars has plus 550 on a top 20 for Windham Clark. That's a really good bet. That's really good value. A top 40 play, I really like as well. DraftKings, I'll be there. I don't care the ownership. So Windham Clark's kind of the next guy that I'm interested in this weekend, and he'll be on the betting card.
Yeah, no, I like it. And when you're looking at long shots, you get up into the triple digit level of player, you kind of want to look and say, like you're saying, how does their skill set match the course? And then maybe what is a weakness that they have that's keeping them from having higher finishes just regularly speaking. And when you look at Clark, he loses strokes around the greens almost every single week. Like that's his weakness. That's what's keeping him from turning a top 30 into a top 10. And like we've been saying, this is a week where doesn't seem like short game issues will be as big of a problem. And his track record on other past Palom courses supports that he should be fine here. So yeah, I like it. And it's a good week to take some flyers, and Windham Clark sounds like a good call to me.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. That was kind of one of just my first instincts this week. And I think that, again, it's just easier to bet a guy when he made some money for you last week, and he certainly did. And it played out well. So next guy that you bet, he's certainly a bomber. He's certainly someone that's long off the tee, and that is Joseph Bramlett. What number did you get him at, and why are you interested in Joey B this week?
Yeah, I got him at 200, which I'm pretty sure is like the lowest that I would have gone for him at. He's first in the field, like you said, in carry distance. So, he hits the ball a really long way. He's 10th in fairway proximity, which I've been using fairway proximity this week just because the fairways are so wide. So there's guys who, Bramlett's one of those players that when he can play from the fairway, he's a fine iron player. But since he's so inaccurate a lot of the times, he doesn't get to play to his strength from the fairway, which he should be able to this week. 10th in proximity from 200 plus. Again, that power showing in the long irons. And from a ball striking perspective, he's been really, really good. He's had a couple of events at Valero. He gained a stroke and a half per round on approach. Same thing in Phoenix. Same thing at the American Express. Gained 1.2 per round at Sony. So he's a solid ball striker, not just with the distance off the tee. He's just a terrible putter and terrible around the greens. And it's a roll of the dice that he gets on to past Palom like we've been talking about. It doesn't harm him quite so much. He's had a few solid finishes in Puerto Rico. He was 9th there in 2020. And then I really like that he was T7 at the Byron Nelson last year at TPC Craig Ranch, which I think is a reasonable comp. So going to roll the dice on him. I'll probably add, a top 20 or something like that, depending on what the odds are. Him winning seems rather outlandish, but for guys in that range, and I had room on my card for him, I think of the long hitters, he's got some approach play numbers that are interesting as well.
Yeah, and even more so, something at 200 to 1 is just something that you can easily get on. And I think that he does possess some talent and some upside to pay that off. So I think a top 40 and a top 20 is a good play on him. I'm looking at he still is 150 to 1 on DraftKings Sportsbook. I bet it at 100 again with the each way, but I just think he has way too much talent to be at this number, and that's Adam Svensson, second place at the Honda. 26th at RBC. He was like 400 to 1. He was in the top 10 for at one point, so that was well worth a 400 to 1
Absolutely.
Bet. So he's again someone that consistently gains on approach. His approach numbers are really good. He gained 5.2 on approach in his last outing at RBC, and he actually putted decently well. Again, lost around the green, like we've talked about consistently. I think that will be a little bit easier this week. And I think at Honda, what really helped him back, again, like we talked about, was the putting. He missed a lot of short putts, and I'm willing to take a gamble that it will be a little bit, it's just easier to putt on Paspal a little bit. So I just hope all those things can kind of come together and he can play well. And I'm more than willing to take a chance at 100 to 1 on Svensson. I definitely will like to play him in DraftKings. I think it's a fine play and something that I'm interested in, and I'll be on.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, he is a much better ball striker than the 150 to 1 would represent. And he has been putting better. 3 straight events where there's stats that he has gained strokes putting, which he had lost 5 in a row badly before that. So that's a positive sign. He's had success on some of these like coastal venues. He won in the Bahamas on the Corn Ferry Tour. And yeah, that's enough at 150 to 1 against this field to feel pretty confident making a play.
Yeah, so I'm going to go there. The last guy I want to talk about, and someone that I am definitely playing in DraftKings 100%. He's 6'8", and he's like 151. I might have to bet him. I'll be betting him top 20, top 40. I think they're really good plays, but that's going to be Vincent Whaley. When I was just looking at some of the stats I was looking at this week, he just kind of popped in a lot of them for his 6K price range. So over the last 50 rounds, he's 10th in par 5 scoring, 6th in birdies or better, and 11th in putting. And he has some decent results on comp courses. He has a 9th and 15th at Puerto Rico Open, and he's made the cut every single time at Corrales, Punta Cana. So again, I just think that he's someone that's very is talented enough in this field and possesses some upside to play well. Again, this spot, and he's off 2 straight made cuts. Like, I could just see it a little bit. Again, I don't think he's going to win, but someone you could play in your DraftKings lineups a little bit down the board, someone you could bet top 20 and top 40 and feel good about it. He's probably my favorite one in that range.
Yeah, definitely another guy to add kind of in that. I saw his odds were 150, but Kurt Kitayama is someone who's been interesting to me. He's long off the tee. He's in Europe. He was somebody who was winning pretty consistently. He had that good performance at Honda. He can get hot with his irons. And you give him a venue like this where you can kind of just let it fly. I think he can heat up. But I've got a 500 to 1 special. I think he's like 6,200 in DraftKings. Actually, it was like his ownership was like 2 or 3%. So I'm not the only person in the world who is on this. But that's going to be Jared Wolf. We'll have to get the Wolf gifts going for a different Wolf this week with Matt not in the field. But here's what I like about him. He's long off the tee. He's 11th in the field in carry distance, 13th in fairway proximity. So again, one of those guys where if he can play from the fairway, he's a fine iron player. He's probably just in the shit all of the time because he's hitting it all over the place. So that's nice. And then what really excites me about it is looking back at his Corn Ferry results. He actually won twice on the Corn Ferry in 2020, which there's a lot of guys. I mean, Drangali has played 339 professional events and never won at all. And this guy at least won twice on the Corn Ferry, which is, still something. And you look at some of those fields that he beat on the Corn Ferry, there's a lot of guys who people are high on this week. He's beating Smotherman, he's beating Davis Riley, he's beating Taylor Pendrith, all these types of guys that this week are going to be 80, 100 to 1. And Pendrith's not on the field, I don't think. But those type of guys that people are high on, this guy just beat them in tournaments a couple of years ago. And what's really exciting is one of his wins was the Wichita Open in September of 2020. And you go and you look and you say, who else has won the Wichita Open? And he beat Pendrith that week, who's another long hitter. So there's you start to think this is a course that benefits long hitters. Aaron Wise won the Wichita Open in 2017. In 2016, Colin Morikawa and JJ Spawn were runners up there. So this is a course that has pointed to some success for players on the Korn Ferry Tour previously. He's also won 3 times on the Latin American Tour, so he's comfortable down in this part of the world. And so when you put all those things together, you see him at 500 to 1. Totally worth the roll of dice. I put the maximum amount that FanDuel would let me, which was like $18 was the most you could bet on him at 500 to 1. But I think he's got a fighting chance. And you know what? This week is a week to do something crazy.
I love the case that you laid out. I think it's very compelling. And I'm glad, other people are seeing it. So I have a plus 625 top 20 on my local. I'm down. I'm putting it in, through $50 on it. Yeah. So I think that's a great bet. And I think that's for all the reasons you laid out. And, another reason I wanted to have you on, because I knew that you would be able to find, some diamonds in the rough, some guys further down, because it happens every single week. But in an event like this, there will be some guys you absolutely have never heard about that are at the top of the leaderboard. And it's just going to be a matter of finding them and, figuring it out. And, I hope Wolf is one of them, because Matthew Wolf isn't doing anything for anyone recently.
Yeah, and he was T29 at Valero, and he was T28 at Puerto Rico. So, he would have cashed that top 40 in 2 of his last 3 starts. I think, and he was T33 at the American Express. So he's a competent golfer. He's obviously...
Why is he 6'2"?
That's what I'm saying. He's clearly wildly inconsistent, but there's certain people who are consistent who don't have the upside to win golf tournaments. Drangali probably being one of them, who's in the field this week. And yeah, he's done it before, and who knows? And we were talking about earlier, when you've got somebody at 400 to 1, like you had Svensson at RBC, and he's 500 to 1, if he is even in the top 10 for one hole, it makes the whole week worthwhile. So that's where we'll be rolling. It's Jared Wolf week, and like I said, hopefully we can fire up the Wolf.
We're not gonna hear anything. I love it, and I hope people are listening, and I hope that they play Jared Wolf, because it's a great play, in my opinion, and you can get some juicy odds. So what book was he 500 to 1?
He was 500 on FanDuel, and then he was 300 on the other books, like Caesars.
Yeah. So when these guys have these odds, through the board on all their placements, they have super high odds. Someone I bet on, I do not have a case at all for it, but it's just, if someone gives me 100 to 1 odds on a top 20, if you were playing in this event, I would take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would literally take 100 to 1 on a top 20 on anyone. Matt Avery, 100 to 1 for a top 20.
He was 100 to 1 for a top 20 on
yes.
Yeah, you got to put that in. Plus, I think he was on No Laying Ups at some point recently, and he seemed like a chill dude. So
he's chill.
Yeah.
He's won the Bay Hill twice, not a comp, but it's 100 to 1 for a top 20. That's ridiculous. And then again, I'm just bullshitting, but on Betfast Action, which is a very popular local book, someone DM'd me and was like, I know you're on Betfast. Did you see that Streelman was 400 to 1? Streelman is 400 to 1 on my local book. I threw $10 on it. Now, it's not even he's not going to, there's 0% chance Kevin Streelman wins. It's not going to happen. I only threw 10. Obviously, why not throw $50 on it? I don't care. I don't care to lose $50. My local book is not paying me out 10 grand on that. So $10, maybe I could get it. But yeah, I'll have some rooting interest for Kevin Streelman this week, even though I think he has legitimately no shot. So I want to ask you, how has your DFS season been going? What contests have you been playing in? And how has that been going for you?
As I'm sure it is with most people, it very much ebbs and flows. There's weeks where you're like, this shit is so easy. Why don't I put all of my money on here and never bet outrights again? Because I'm clearly an expert on this. And then there's weeks where you lose every single contest that you're in. But usually I'll play the $200 single entry. I like to do the single entry just because I know there's people out there who are super smart and using computers more than I am, and they're going to put in 100 lineups or whatever it may be in the other contests, and I don't want to compete against them. So I'll do the single entry, and then there's a It's like a $267 entry to win $1,000 against 3 other people. So I'll do that each week. So just those 2 contests. I don't think I've won the last couple of weeks. My best, we were texting about it at the time, my best sweat was at the Players Championship. That time, the $200 entry, the winning was $100,000. I think it's usually $50K. And I had the lead in the 3rd round for at least a little bit, which I'm sure a lot of people touch the lead in turn. Like, you're not going to win just because you got the lead in the 3rd round, but it was super fun. Our boy Louis completely screwed me that week, like he has many other times.
So what did you wind up?
I think I ended up like 40th place out of like.
What did you win?
I think the entry was 200. I probably won like 1,000. Like, I mean, it was nice. But when you could have won 100,000, it's like you don't even want the money at that point because it was like devastated. But the outrights is what is most fun for me. Like, just following them is most fun. I'll play those 2 contests, and it's a nice little backup. If you have like none of your outrights are in contention. And usually, what I'll do is like, if I have a guy that I like, but I'm not betting him outright, I'll play him in DFS. And so like I end up, with maybe 10 to 15 guys that I like for the week. I'll bet some of them. I'll play some of them in DFS. And unless I really mess up the week, then at least I've got something interesting going into the weekend, which is like really all that you can ask for.
Yeah, I'm in the $200 single entry every single week. Like, I'm just always bet that. I'm always in it because it's just a good contest to be in. And if you're like, again, like you said, I'm making 150 lineups. Like, I'm just not doing that. Like, I don't have enough guys that I like. I just like making one lineup. So I like playing the $200 and then I like playing the $100 single entry. And what I've learned is that this is what usually happens in my DFS week. I make my $200 single entry. I really like that. And then I make like a kind of different lineup for the $100 to like kind of limit my exposure. But then I wind up liking the $200 so much that I just make them kind of the same, maybe switch out like 2 guys. But I've learned that like kind of my FOMO lineup that I put in like the 33 or something kind of does well. So from now on, it's a different core. Like, it's a different build kind of. Like, I'm not going to start with the same guys because I like to think that I can, be profitable, and my first gut, like $200 single entry is going to be the best, but it's probably not going to be. It's just, in my opinion, it's best to just have 2 not completely, but like different lineups in my 2 contests because one of them is more likely to hit than both of them always hitting, if that makes any sense. So I like doing that. So I'll be in it. I have a little bit of bankroll going. I'm not cashing out any of it. I'm just going to go until it's gone because it doesn't
matter. And the nice thing too about doing the single entry, and like I said, the like 4-person contest that I enter, is that you really don't have to worry about ownership that much. Like, you should still think about it. But unless, and this is even, I'm sure there are people who disagree with me, but broadly speaking, unless you're consistently getting 6 out of 6 lineups in whatever contest you're doing, you're wasting your time worrying about the ownership because you need to be consistently hitting 6 out of 6 for the ownership really to like matter that much. That's my opinion. Like I said, I'm sure people disagree. And broadly speaking, I'm not a huge DFS player. Like, I like to try to figure out who's going to win. That's fun for me, and people should do what they like. And switching topics quickly, PGA Championships coming up. I know.
Yeah, I was literally just going to ask you who your picks
were. Because I wanted to ask you, because I know, like, for the Masters, for example, you had Cam Smith that you picked up in advance, which was an awesome like ticket to hold, because I think all of us would have loved to have Cam Smith, but nobody was going to bet him at 16-1 or whatever he was. How are you feeling about the PGA Championship and what do you have dialed up so far?
So it's funny. And a few podcasts I listened to, Tap It In, they bet Cantley PGA Championship. Andy now thinks Cantley's going to win the PGA Championship. I bet it earlier. I have like a 25-1. I only have to win like 800 on it. So like, it's not a big ticket. It's not like, that's not really like what I would like to win. But something about Cantley in big events, like, he just doesn't show up. And my thing about Cantley is that if you look at every single major winner, so Scotty has been excellent in the major. Colin fucking won a major earlier in the year. Phil is a multiple-time major champion. Rahm has been excellent in the majors. Decky was excellent in the majors. Like, Cantley just flat out does not have that.
And I bet him for the PGA after the second round at the Century, because he was playing great. He didn't play at all in the fall, and then he just showed up and was amazing again. And I was like, I'm not going to bet him at the Masters, but I'm going to bet him at the PGA. So I got him at 28, and I feel the same way. And then I almost don't want to have the ticket because it's now shrinking down the pool of other players in that range, because he has been terrible in the majors, and Southern Hills is going to be an extremely firm and fast test, and it's going to be windy as shit. Like, it's going to be a tough test. In my opinion, like, who knows? This could easily be wrong. Don't hold me to this. I could see an above par score winning the PGA Championship. I think it's going to be an extremely tough test. In Cantlay, I think we all assume that he is the type of player who is great on these very strategic, because he just is so stoic, and, you know, he sounds smart when he talks, and he is a smart guy. But he's only good in Birdie Fest. He's good when the scores are extremely low. That's why he was good last week. That's why he was good at Caves Valley when the scores were extremely low. I mean, he's been good at Memorial, which is like middle of the road scoring. But I've always thought of him in my head as this tough course, grinder type of guy. And he doesn't really have a track record of doing that, which concerns me for all the reasons that you're mentioning at the PGA Championship. I'm going to ride with it because it's a good number, 28. I don't think like he's going to be 28. He's will probably be around 20 or below. But no, he hasn't been great. And I really think like it's looking more like a Cam Smith type of like, I like the Australian guys. If it's going to play firm and fast, if it's going to be about scrambling, the greens are tiny and they slope a ton from what you can see. It's going to be windy. My favorite thing that I have is I got Taylor Gooch at 200, and he is excellent in firm and fast conditions. Windy, and he's from Oklahoma. There's no way in the world he will be 200 to 1 when the tournament starts. And I honestly feel better about him winning than I do about Cantlay at 28.
Yeah, and I think consistently the PGA Championship, other than Brooks winning it twice, has kind of had a more random winner. I mean, Phil was legitimately the most random major winner, and, you know, all how Colin won his first major there. There's been a lot of random winners there. So I think that I don't know if I want to have a bunch of exposure to someone, you know, super at the top of the board there. And I kind of agree about Cantlay. And I like, obviously he can prove me wrong and we can both be dead wrong about it, but I just have a feeling that I, you know, don't want that out of someone that, because like I pointed out, like every single major winner recently has really shown it in majors leading up. And I think, I don't know. So we'll see about that. Like any other, like again, short game, like I think that's going to be extremely important because these greens have a lot of shaved runoff areas. So again, like a Spieth, a Reed, a Cam Smith, like you talked about, I think can be really great. So I kind of like Cam Smith there a little bit.
Louis Oosthuizen. I know he has not been playing well, but this is a Louis course in a major. He's been great in PGA Championships. He's been great in U.S. Opens. I'm hoping that it seems like he might play Wells Fargo. I saw you were tweeting some stuff about that. And I hope he plays, and I hope he plays terribly. Because if we can get him at 60, 80 to 1, I will be playing Louis Oosthuizen. And I feel confident about it because that's Louis Oosthuizen golf, is just not fucking it up, hanging around, and then ending up losing in the end, but making it interesting.
No, exactly. It's a total make or break this major season with Louis, like, in my opinion, like, because the course is set up really well for him. And that's where he should. And again, he withdrew at the Masters, like, whatever. He's never, obviously, he's lost in a playoff there, but he's never been like unbelievable always at the Masters. And I just think this season will be a test of, like was last year, an anomaly. And that if his game is really that good enough to contend at, you know, the PGA, the US Open, and the Open Championship. And then, you know, when we get around to the Open Championship, which will be here before we know it, Louis is going to be the guy with the best course history. Like, he won it, and then he lost in a playoff. So I think that's super interesting. But I talked about it last week, and I really kind of talked about it more, and I really kind of sold myself on it. But I think my favorite major bet to make right now is Cam Smith at the Open Championship. You can get him at like 22 to 1 on PointsBet. I am starting my card with him at the Open Championship. I think it makes legitimately all the sense in the world. St. Andrews is a massively open golf course. He's shown that that's where he plays well and that's where he can contend. So I really like that about it. I think the winning score is going to be in the 20s. People were taking it to the 20s in the early 2000s at the old course. So they're going to destroy the course. A lot of wedges in It's Not That course. I really like Cam Smith with wedges. Mark Leishman's play there, another Australian. So that's my favorite bet. Southern Hills and US Open, they're just going to be really difficult tests, and it's hard to say right now. I'm not going to bet a bunch of guys right now because it's very hard to kind of predict this far out.
The couple things I'd add to that is, so for the Open, I bet Scotty in the third round of the Masters at the Open at 22-1. I feel good about that. I don't think he'll be in the 20s at the Open, even if he doesn't play well in the next two majors. And I did that because his wedge play is sick. And it's the same reason you're talking about Cam Smith. And it's the same reason they were up there at the Masters. And it's very possible that it is Cam Smith and Scheffler in contention at the Open. So I feel pretty good about that. But the guy who the numbers aren't looking good on him at the PGA, I think I saw it's only 35-1. But Shane Lowry has been unbelievable this year. He has been spectacular. His ball striking is a joke. Like the number of times, the reason his loss at Heritage was upsetting beyond just the fact that he chipped it into the water, like, I don't know what you're doing in that situation. He had so many approach shots inside 10 feet. It was like every single hole that he was hitting inside 10 feet. He's been doing that for week after week after week. And when he goes to a place like Southern Hills, where he's probably going to be the hottest ball striker in the field. And when you look at like people talk about Morikawa and things like that, Morikawa was so hot with his iron play last summer. He was gaining 2 strokes per round, or like 8 strokes total, 10 strokes total. And you got to look for guys now this year putting up those same type of numbers, which Morikawa's not, and a guy like Lowry is, and you got to find a spot for them. I don't know if 35 at the PGA is going to be good for him, but I expect him to be in contention at every major this year. Yeah, and he should have been. He was in contention at the Masters, but he just got.
He just ran away with it. Like if it was any other Masters, like he would have been right in the thick of it. And it's like really like I've literally bet him every single. I wasn't on him at the Honda, but I bet him every single week after that, legitimately every single week. So he will absolutely be on my major card every single year because I'm just not gonna miss out on it. And I kind of started. It started with the Valspar. I bet him at the Players. He top 20, and then I bet him at the Valspar. He finished top 20 as well. And I was tracking him a lot because I had him big plan in top 20, like I always do. I was betting him outright. And, like, not strokes gained. Like, he was legitimately putting everything to 15 feet.
Every time.
Everything to 15 feet. So I really like that. And he's a major champion. He contended at the U.S. Open at Oakmont when DJ won. So Lowry will be on every single major card. Another guy that will be on every single major card, and I really like him at the U.S. Open, and I really like him at the PGA, is Will Zalatoris. Again, we're just talking about literally the best ball strikers on tour. Someone put out a stat before, like top strokes gained, ball striking over the past 50 round. Rahm, Zalatoris, Lowry, like. I will play them. I think Zalatoris's biggest strengths are in tougher events, tougher fields. Where par is at a premium.
He declared he's like a major specialist, which whether that's true or not, like if he believes that, that's really all that matters.
Yeah. So I will be betting Zalatoris every major. I'll be betting Lowry every single major. I like Cam Smith at the Open, but PGA at Southern Hills, it's going to be great. And I think it will be someone over 30-1. I just think the PGA has proven to be that way, and I just think we're due for a little bit of a long shot random winner.
And I think, like I said, I mean, I was just this weekend because the 2-man tournament wasn't that exciting to follow along. I started to kind of look at some of the PGA Championship stuff, and like I just opened up the weather in Tulsa. And it was blowing 20 miles an hour every single day. Like, who knows if that's what it will be the week that the tournament comes. But if it's blowing that hard and the greens are that firm and that are that small, it opens up the door, like you're saying, to a random winner even further beyond the fact that it's just the PGA Championship. It's like when the wind blows like that, the control that a good player has over his ball is lost to some degree, and then it becomes a little bit of a crapshoot. So, like we're saying, I don't think it's a tournament where you would want to be adding a bunch of guys right now doing futures bets. You kind of want to see when the week comes, what are the numbers, and go from there. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to all the majors, and I'm heading over to Scotland at the end of May. And I'm going to try to, if you line up at St. Andrews early in the morning, midnight, you can get on the course. And I'm going to try to get on the course and get us some ground level information.
So are you going on a golf trip, or is this just a trip over for fun?
So my girlfriend and I were looking to just go somewhere like we usually go this time of year somewhere. And we're going to go to Edinburgh just to hang out for a week. And then I was like, I might as well stay a couple of days extra and just play a little bit of golf since we'll be in the area. So it's a trip with the girlfriend that's going to turn into just a little solo golf adventure for a few days. I've lined up some tee times at some solid courses, so I'll tweet out some photos, let the followers join the journey a little bit. But the goal is at least either way, I'm going to go to St. Andrews, try to at least see what's going on, and maybe I'll hop back on board the podcast with a few tidbits as we get closer there with some ground level information.
So I know that it's tough living in New York City and just trying to play golf. Obviously we're very close to each other. I live on Long Island. I have Bethpage, 5 minutes away from me. So I play all the time, but how often do you get out? Like, when can you play? Like, is it just kind of something you can't do in New York City?
I live 1 block from the Chelsea Piers driving range, which is the most ridiculously priced driving range in the world. For people who don't know, for $55, instead of selling like a bucket of balls like you'd be familiar with at almost every driving range in the world, it is $50 for 1 hour at the driving range. And like, they'll let you hit as many balls as you can in an hour, but like, that's stupid. And so like, I'm not going to do that often. So I've only been a handful of times. The only round that I've played within like the last 9 months is when I was in San Diego. I played Torrey North with some of my friends. But I've got a new set of Srixon irons coming in within the next week or two. So I'm going to have to go to the range, break those in. But my expectations of how I play when I go to Scotland are extremely low. But the nice thing is the link style, if I'm kind of just shanking it around, keeping it low, letting it roll around, I think it'll be fine. I'm going to find like there's a chipping green over at the Chelsea Piers. It's like rock hard pavement. So hopefully that's been some good practice. But I don't have a car or anything like that, but we've got a lineup around out there at your home course.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, like, really, like, I know you're busy and everything, but like on a weekend, like if you want to come out, just got to come out early. I'll pick you up from the train, whatever. We could play Bethpage, get around, and that would be great because I've been playing a lot. I literally played like 45 holes last weekend, like the first weekend. It was really nice.
Yeah, it was nice.
I'm playing, like I said, I'm playing a country club Friday. I'm playing Saturday. So it's a full golf season. I literally can't buy anything. Again, I don't have a lot of expenses, so I like to spend it on golf. I have nothing else to buy. My set is completely, furnished. I have nothing else, but my game has felt good. I just haven't been making a lot of, dumb mistakes. I've been driving it really well. I have not struggled with the driver at all. My mid irons have been good. My wedges have been good. Like my short game's been good. My putting's been okay. Like I'm just really excited for this upcoming season because just a few weeks into it, I just feel the game is in a good spot, and we'll have to get around in. And I'm always going to talk about my golf game on my podcast because that's just something I'm going to do. And I'll be full of updates on Twitter with everything I do. But I'm feeling good about the game. So we got to play around.
Let's do it. So within the next month, before I go on this trip, let's line something up. I'll come out there. You pick me up. We'll play 18. We'll play 36. Doesn't really matter. We'll play as much as we can because if I'm going to travel all the way out to Bethpage, I got to get my money's worth. So
yeah,
let's
absolutely. It's a good place to play. I'm very lucky to be there. So Adam, it was obviously a pleasure to have you on. I'm looking forward to cashing a winner this week. Absolutely 100%. We're hitting a winner. 100%. No question about it. I appreciate everyone who checked out the pod, And I hope you have a great night, Adam. And I hope everyone who listens to this has a great night as well.
Thanks.
All right. See you later.